Congratulations on your new Class A. I'm Ian Baker, and I'm going to walk you through some of the basics of Class A's as well as some of the potential pitfalls to help you avoid them later on down the road. Now, because Class A's, there's such a large variety, we're going to hit, again, kind of generalizations in some of the basics, and I'll try to hit both gas and diesel, so that way we cover, hopefully, no matter what coach you have. Now, if it is a gas coach, it will be built on the Ford F53 chassis. I say that because for at least the past decade, a little bit longer, that's all they have built gas Class A's on, so this is what you will have. It may have a different power plant, again, depending on when it was built. If you have a diesel chassis, chances are it's built on the Freightliner or the Spartan. It's a quick note about serviceability. If it's a Ford chassis, most Ford dealerships are able to work on your chassis, change oil, things like that for you. If it is diesel, again, you will have to find either a Freightliner or the Spartan chassis dealer that is able to work on that specific coach. If you want to learn more about the chassis, especially on the diesel side, both Freightliner and Spartan offer amazing classes, so you can learn everything there is to know about the chassis. Highly, highly recommended. If you're a new RV owner, you're new to a Class A, definitely get on their website, take one of those classes. I promise you, you'll feel a lot more comfortable at the end of the day. If we take a look right up front on the Ford F53, on any gas, your engine will be up front on your gas coach. That's just the way the chassis is built. On a diesel, with very few exceptions, the engine will be in the rear, so bear that in mind. Right up front here, you'll see the door. This pops open nice and easily, kind of like the hood of your car. There's a little latch, you pop that open, it'll swing open just like this and give you that access to all of your fluids, whether it's your trans fluid, your coolant, you have brake fluid, power steering fluid, washer fluid, all of that will be right up here, plus your chassis battery. We have some other batteries in the back that'll be for the house. I'll show you in just a moment, but just know that your chassis battery is up here, so you do have to check both battery locations, especially if you're going to be doing any colder weather camping or storing it in the off season. Big, beautiful piece of glass right up front. Now, a lot of people ask me, is that a big target for rock chips? Well, sure, it's a big piece of glass, but that's why you want to make sure that you have good insurance. I highly, highly recommend Good Sam Insurance. The reason being is it is built specifically for RVs. It will cover things that get stolen out of your RV as well, which a lot of times your auto insurance won't cover that. Or if you have a satellite dish and you go under a low-hanging bridge and it gets taken off, you will be covered with Good Sam again. A lot of the other insurances you won't, so make sure you get good insurance, folks. As far as driving a Class A, if you've never driven it before, what you'll notice is you don't have a nose on here. It's just big and flat. So when you're driving down the road, what you'll want to do is actually use your mirrors, and you're going to see the lanes on both sides. You'll see the lines. That's how you're going to know where you're in the lane. Normally when we drive an automobile, you drive your Class C, you subconsciously line up the nose with the lines. Because you can't do that, you have to make good use of your mirrors when you're driving down the road. But I promise you, once you get used to it, it's an absolute breeze. Also, you get good visibility. Most of your Class A's will have some kind of side view camera, whether it's built in the mirror like this one or on the side, so that when you hit your blinker, if you are changing lanes, you get that extra visibility, again, just to help you maneuver about the road as well as backing up. We take another step back here, we'll take a look at the tires. You can have different tires depending on the size. It'll generally either be 19.5 or 22.5s like we have here. Usually with tires, folks, you want to replace those somewhere around 5 to 8 years. You definitely want to keep checking, not only for dry rot, but also wear, depending on how many miles you put on there. Especially if you're going to be storing it for any length of time. As you know, just like with an automobile, you don't want to just have it stored on grass, right, or on the ground. That's going to eat up your tires really quick. You're going to start getting a bunch of rot in there. Don't do that. Make sure you take good care of your tires. The back will be some dualies. We'll take a look at that in a moment as well. Steps, you'll have a couple different style of steps depending on the coach. Most of them are powered. There's usually a switch right inside the door to turn those on or off. So if you want them, let's say you're at your campsite, you want them out, right? Open up your door. Here, you know what? Let me show you this. So open up your door just like this. Now the steps are out. I have a switch right here. I'm going to turn that off so that when I close my door, the steps stay out. Nice little thing to know. That way they're not constantly opening and closing. Just makes getting in and out of the RV a little bit easier. Of course, grab handles here help in that as well. You will see right up top a power awning as well as a slide topper. Not all Class A's come with slide toppers. Some of them will. They do help prevent any kind of sticks or debris from getting down in that slide. It is a good idea, folks, to get up there and just still brush anything off, but The slide toppers definitely help in preventing, like I say, those things from getting in the slide seals and beating up your slides. So I do like having those. And then of course the power awning here, that will be operated from inside. Some RVs will also have window awnings on the driver's side as well. Let's talk a little bit about storage. One of the great things about a Class A is you get huge storage. Now, the storage you get is going to depend upon the chassis and how they put everything underneath, from all of your propane tank, your water tanks, everything else. You can see right here, and this is pretty common of Class A's, is that you will have kind of something like this, and then you will have your rails right down the center, and of course they cover that up. Now, this particular one, you will see you have a little bit of a pass-through right up top. That is not always the case. As I mentioned, that will depend on both the size of the I-beam as well as the manufacturer and how they build it, but you do still get excellent storage kind of running all up and down the side here. Making our way back a little bit further, you'll see the water heater. Not a ton to talk about here. Just bear in mind that this does blow out hot air. It's usually a bigger issue on like travel trailers where it's a lot lower. This is going to be pretty high, so you don't have to worry about chairs or anything. But if you're setting up anything tall, like a flag or a banner, something like that, if you're at like a tailgate, just make sure you steer it clear of that so it's not burning up, catching fire. That is the last thing in the world you want. Now in the back, as I mentioned, you will have dualies. Your Class A's, most of them, will have this right here, which is a valve extender. So you will see this is for this tire. There's another one for the back one. So that way you can make sure that both are at proper inflation without having to snake it back there. So that valve extender definitely will be a big bonus to have. Making our way all the way to the back, these are your batteries. Again, folks, it may not be in this same location. Depending on your Class A, it can be completely different locations. You'll see this one also has a tray to slide out, as well as battery disconnects right there, which is convenient. But these are your house batteries. This is what's going to operate everything inside the motorhome itself. There is, and I'll show you when we get inside, an emergency start. In the event that your chassis battery dies and your coach won't start, there's an emergency start button you can hold, and then it will draw power from these house batteries so you are not stranded. That's a really nice safety feature to have that you will find on pretty much every Class A out there. As we come around to the back of the coach, a couple quick things I want to hit on. One will be the ladder. Most Class A's will come with a ladder, and it will be a fully walkable roof. You'll want to get up there for some basic inspection as well as cleaning. I always recommend getting up there at least twice a year, folks. Now, here's the thing. As you can see, that's obviously very tall, right? You're generally 13 plus foot up on the roof, and I completely understand if you don't want to get up there. I don't blame you. I don't like being up there either. But here's the thing. Across the entire U.S., every Camping World location has free roof inspections. So doesn't matter what state you're in, you're driving, you see a Camping World, perfect. You can swing on in, do a little shopping if you want, but also you can have someone get up on the roof and just do that inspection for you to make sure the seals and everything up there are good. Because the last thing in the world you want is a leak to have happen, or just have like bird poop or sap from a pine tree that's on there that's acidic, and it's just gonna start chewing up that roof membrane. So definitely bring it on by, have someone climb up and make sure your roof is good to go. Also, backup camera will be somewhere on there, so that way, again, you get that visibility as you are going in reverse. And you can also have that on kind of as like a rear view mirror while you're going down the road. That is especially helpful if you're towing, so you can see what's behind you, right? If you have a car back here, you want to be able to keep an eye on it, you can do that. Speaking of towing, every Class A will have a hitch and be able to tow anywhere from 5,000 to about 20,000 pounds. Your Class A's will be somewhere between your gas coaches will be somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000. When you start going up from there, once you start getting into some of the diesel, but it'll have a 7-way plug and everything you need to be able to tow car, trailer, boat, whatever you want behind here. Fuel fill is another thing that is going to be coach dependent. This particular one is on the back of the RV, so you're able to fill up from either side in the gas station, right? Gas pumps on both sides. Some of them will have dual fuel fill, and so they'll have a door on both sides that lead into one tank. Some of them will just be on one side or the other. So just know your coach, know where your gas tank is. It will make filling up a lot easier when you hit the gas station. Every Class A will also have a generator of some sort, and that specific generator will be sized to be able to run everything in the RV. Now, some of them will have an electronic management system, or EMS, so that if you have, for example, 3 air conditioners, it will shed one or drop one, so it's running 2 at a time, so that way it can keep the coach cool. Unless you have specific ACs where they have soft start, something like that, chances are it's not going to run all three at the same time. But the great thing about this is it makes it very self-sufficient. You don't have to have shore power. You can still run ACs, TVs, everything else off the generator. The one thing I will say about the generator, folks, if you're not familiar with the generator, this is something you have to run often. Even if you don't need it, you should still, once a week, fire this up, let it run for a few minutes before you shut it off. The reason being, what happens is people will go to use their generator, they'll use it once, they won't use it again for, say 2 years, and then they go to fire it up and it won't start. Well, what happened is a bunch of old gas got in that carburetor, and now it's all gummed up and it's not allowing it to fire up. That is one of the #1 service calls we get on Class A and pretty much any motorhome, to be honest with you, is on the generator. So you want to make sure that you are running that fairly often. Right up front here, probably the last thing we're going to touch on before we head inside is your wet bay or your wash bay. This will have everything you need for your sewer termination. You can see that's going to be right down here. Usually you'll have some kind of outside shower, which is great for washing off. A lot of manufacturers will put your water pump there too, so it is easy to find. It also makes things easier for winterization. Now, a lot of them will have something like this right here too, as well, right? So you can bypass your water heater right here. Most Class A's will come with that water heater bypass, which is great. And again, for winterization, having that pump there is wonderful. Whole house filter oftentimes is here too, so you're able to change that out. Once again, last thing I do want to touch on, this is your furnace. Hot air, folks, it's blowing out of here. Not that you have anything here, but just make sure that you are aware of where your vents are on your coach so that you're not starting accidental fires. But that pretty much wraps it up out here. Let's head on in. And on the inside of the Class A, one of the great things is you'll generally get a walkway, right? A hallway from the cab all the way on back to the bathroom, bedroom, refrigerator, whatever you need to get to. Now, bear in mind that while technically, yes, you can get up and go to those things like go to the refrigerator and go to the bathroom while on the road, and I know a lot of people do. For safety's sake, I honestly highly recommend to pull over if you're going to get out of your seat. The reason being is any sudden movement in here can cause someone to fall, they can get hurt, things can fall out of cabinets, hit you in the head. That's not something you want to have happen. So even though you can do it, I still recommend pulling over. Now, speaking of the cab though, let's go ahead and take a look right up here, as you generally will spend a lot of time up here. A couple nice things about Class A's is both passenger and driver seats do swivel around so that you can still utilize this space even when you're parked. Now, when you're driving, you can make everything nice and comfortable because, again, if you're going to have some longer trips, you want to be comfortable, you will generally have tilt on your steering wheel just like so. That'll be pretty much on all of the Class A's. When you start getting into some of the diesels, you can get telescoping steering wheels. You can also get adjustable gas and brake pedals as well. And then, of course, your seat will adjust. That'll, again, depend on the manufacturer. The passenger seat will adjust. Again, some manufacturers have power for that as well. Let's talk a little bit about some of the controls you will find. One of the things you'll always find right up front is your generator. It's always going to be right there, very easy to access, start and stop. Usually you'll have a little hour monitor there too. And then next to that, you'll often find they'll either call it emergency or auxiliary start, and that's a big one. What that is if your chassis battery happens to die, you can push and hold this, and it will actually draw power from the coach battery. So you push and hold this down, and then start the coach, and it will actually let it fire up, which is a really nice feature so you're not stuck out at your campsite. You'll generally find a switch for some lights as well as some fans that you will have here in the cab. And then somewhere, whether it's here in the center dash or sometimes in the armrest, you will find your auto level system. Now, depending on the coach, it may be electric, it could be hydraulic, could be air. Sometimes you'll have air and one of the other ones. But either way, you will find that, and it will be accessible right here from the driver's panel. You'll also find something to be able to operate your center dash. You can see this one is a manual dash. As you start to step up into some of the, again, diesel Class A's, you can get in some digital dashes and all sorts of other fun things, and you can kind of play around and see what it can track. Right here in the center, you'll also have your, like a multimedia center. Now, this one you'll see they have it broken up, right? You have your radio here, and then you have your backup camera, side view cameras there. I just want to show you, right? So I hit the blinker. You can see now, side view. Went back to rear view. If I hit the other side, the left side, you can see how quickly and easily that adjusts. So again, I talked about getting that extra visibility. Even if you just tap it for a second, it'll sit there and hold for a bit. So even if you're just switching lanes, it gives you that visibility, which I like. But depending on your coach, it may kind of combine both of these into one system. It just all depends on what you have. You'll also generally find controls for your front shade. It may just be a night shade like we have here. It could be a day-night shade depending on the RV, but those are generally powered. The ones on the sides sometimes are powered, but more often than not will be manual. You'll have some kind of thermostat, right? Your climate controls right up here for your cab AC and furnace. Some 12-volt plugins. This one also happens to have a USB. And then over to the side, a lot of times what you'll find is this right here, where you have like the passenger has like this little pull-out workstation, which is really nice. Can double as a table. Again, if you are eating while you're traveling, you have an electrical outlet down there, cup holders, of course. And then up top, usually you will have a bunch of storage. Now, what you will notice is this one actually has a TV. And some will. Some manufacturers have actually gotten rid of the TV. The reason being, in its place is right up top here, you have a bed that will actually drop down. And that's a really cool feature to have. It is easy to get to. Usually there'll be some safety pins or latches, so if you do want to drop the bed down, you'll have to make sure you undo those. Then you'll have a key with a switch somewhere as well. They kind of have some redundancy so that, you know, it's not falling down on you as you're driving. That's the last thing in the world that you'd ever want to happen. So they make sure that everything is nice and safe. Now, when I talk about the slides and opening the slides, right, every Class A will be a little bit different on the requirements. Sometimes, if you have your battery disconnect on, right, you have power to the coach portion of the RV, your slides will open. Other manufacturers will require you to have the engine on. This particular one requires you to have the engine on and the parking brake set, which I believe more and more manufacturers are actually starting to go to that. And the reason is they want you to have the coach running so you have a little bit higher voltage, right? It helps the slides move in and out properly. Even if it doesn't require it, I do recommend either to have the generator running or have the coach on if it will allow you to while you, again, open and close those slides, just because it does make things a little bit easier. Now, this one has what's called a multiplex control system. And I'll show you the main panel in just a second here. Let me actually extend this slide out, give you a little bit of space there. So this is the main control panel in the multiplex. There are several control panels that operate different individual things, but you can operate everything from this one right here. And of course, the great thing about slides is once you park, it just gives you a ton of room, as you can see. So here, right, this has our slides. In fact, on this panel, you can even see, show slide operation, ignition, and parking brake. Both of those are green. Obviously, if one of them conditions were not met, it would be red. You have some settings here for your fans, and then temperature control, climate control, both of your AC units, all of your lights. And as I go through to some of their panels, again, I'll show you how you can control individual lights based upon that. Tank monitoring panel, everything you need is located right there. So super convenient. Now, if it doesn't have this, chances are you just have like a big panel with basically all the same information. It'll just be a lot bigger, won't be touchscreen. And the last thing I want to touch on, folks, is TV. I have a lot of folks who want to be able to watch TV while the coach is in motion. And it is absolutely possible with in-motion satellite. However, it is very different from your standard satellite. And so it does take a little bit more configuring and the right dish to be able to make that happen. Now, if that is something you're interested in, then please, I highly recommend to stop into one of your local Camping World stores. We'll be able to help you out, be able to hook that entire system up, get you everything you need so that you have that capability as well. And folks, that pretty much wraps up the basics of a Class A. Now, as always, as I mentioned, I highly recommend that you take some of those courses I talked about. If you have a diesel coach, reach out to Freightliner, reach out to Spartan, learn a little bit more about that chassis. If you have specific questions, you can always come into a Camping World as well, folks. We are here, we have trained professionals that will absolutely answer any questions you have to make sure that camping is not only fun, but easy.